Okay, so day one is finished here at MLG Columbus, the major, and we're going into day two, and so I'm going to talk about a few of the matchups we've got. So in Group A, we have got the winners match. It's actually going to be the losers matches first. I'll do the losers matches first. So the losers match will be Flipside Tactics against Mouse Sports, and Mouse Sports actually gave a pretty good accounting for themselves against Luminosity. So I think seeing Flipside's form's not that great at the moment. I think those two teams actually should match up decently in as much as normally for me it's all about World Edit when you watch Flipside play, and he seems to come out better against like tier 2 teams or the teams at the bottom of the top 10, so I think he'll be able to perform. But I think Mouse Sports should be able to win that, not least because Nico again is in transcendent form and he just won't be stopped no matter who he's playing. So I think Mouse Sports is going to take that match. The winners match will actually be NIP with stand-in threat against Luminosity, so that'll be interesting. But I think people are putting a bit too much weight in the result from IEM when NIP was able to upset Luminosity. But the key point there is Luminosity had already booked their spot in the playoffs in first place. So that match did not actually matter to them whatsoever, whereas NIP couldn't win the group at that point in time. So it mattered a lot to them for pride. It was their first big LAN with Pitt at the time. So I actually think when it comes to that matchup, the big problem is if Luminosity pick bans intelligently, they can get it to a map that's not going to be good for NIP. So NIP have the surprise factor, so we don't know quite how they'll play with threat, especially on CT side. We saw they struggled, but I don't think they're going to win that match. Then we go over to Group B. The losers match in Group B is going to be FaZe against Splice. And even though FaZe looks actually pretty poor, like they only had a couple of guys turn up and frag in that game, I have to say I still think they will beat Splice. Like I think all that hype around Splice, like oh they cheer when they win and they had such great form at the major qualifier. This is a different tournament right now, and even with the slump going on, players like Makalele, players like AZ aren't going to have difficulties against a team like this. This is going to be the pick-me-up they needed, and I think they're going to win that match. In the winners match, we have Team Liquid, who surprisingly made it past FaZe in quite good form, and they're going to be against, that would be Fnatic. So I think that's too much to ask of Team Liquid at this point in time. They have to just go to the best of 3 game. Like Fnatic's just way too good at the moment, and I also think that that's actually where the intimidation factor of Fnatic will prey on the guys from Team Liquid, and they'll be quite worried in this game. I don't expect them to do so well. Then we go into Group C, and in Group C the losers match is going to be, let's think, Envious against Gambit Gaming. Envious looked dreadful, obviously. They really had their difficulties in the game today. I was shocked by how much they were beaten by CLG. It's one thing to lose, but they were outright just thrashed in that game. I think they will get it together. I think like the shock of what's happened means when they go against Gambit, they will win. But I do think actually that will be a close game. Like I think Gambit's shown they're no chumps. They're not going to be pushed around. They have some fragging at least. And I'm also very curious what map that will go to in that particular scenario, because I know both teams don't want to play Overpass. Like I'm really curious where that could end up. Like that could end up on something like Inferno, like Cash, that could go somewhere weird, I think. So the winners match there is going to be CLG against Astralis, and as much as everyone wants to hype CLG, like they did so well against Envious, which they did, problem is it's Astralis, and Astralis just smash any team that's worse than them. The only map they've lost in all of 2016 to a lesser team is against G2, and I don't see that happening now. So I think CLG can try their hardest, but it's hard to know what map they can get it to. It's very unlikely that they're going to do particularly well in that matchup, not least because historically the guys from Astralis always get this team. Like Device always goes crazy against these guys, so I'm expecting big fragging performances from Astralis and a clean win for the group stage there. So Group D, we have got, let me think, so Cloud9 lost to Na'Vi, so we've got Na'Vi against Virtus.pro in the winners match. I'll do the winners match first. That's one of the all-time great matchups. They always play well against each other, even when Na'Vi's on the op like they are and VP not so much. Somehow stylistically they always match up well. They're both fantastic T-side teams. Different style, of course. VP's like they hit you hard and they just run in without necessarily having all the smokes and flashes, rely on those few star players. Na'Vi, much more structured team. They're trying to set up, they're trying to take map control, they're trying to get picks for Guardian. The big problem I see for Virtus.pro is, first of all, the map pool that's normally so good for them in terms of they can go so many places. Everywhere they want to go, Na'Vi can go and beat them there. So it's going to be hard in that sense. Also, Na'Vi have way more firepower. Like they can get the win from a number of different places, whereas for VP, you've got to have snacks turn up for a start, or you're not going to win that match. So I still think Na'Vi's going to go through a burst there. In the losers match, we have Cloud9 against G2, and the big problem here is Cloud9 looked alright actually. As much as they got absolutely body bagged in the second half of the game, they were okay early on in that game against Na'Vi. Meanwhile, against Virtus.pro, G2 looked terrible. Now with that said, I think the battle here is these are two teams who like share a few similar maps, and neither's that strong at the moment. So I actually think like the experience of G2 is what will get them through this match. I do think Cloud9 could win it. Like if Skadoodle and Shroud turn up and frag massively, they could actually have the firepower edge. But at the moment, I'm going to go with the routine, with the system, with the structure of G2. I think G2 will edge that, but it should be a close game. I'm hoping something like Train for that matchup, maybe Cash, something like that. I think that would be a fun matchup overall.